Does it surprise you to learn that the oldest story we have, carved onto this stone tablet in 2000 BC, is about a king chasing immortality? From the literal dawn of our species, immortality has saturated our stories, and it's for three main reasons. It's a chance to explore the inevitability of death. Voldemort, Baldur, Barbossa, all characters who were technically immortal, but still that wasn't enough to avoid fate. There's something incredibly powerful here, how using all of the dark magic in the world, even that isn't enough to escape death. Take the Epic of Gilgamesh, that ancient story I just mentioned. The oldest story known is of a man trying to become immortal, failing, and having to accept that his life will come to an end. Stories using immortality to emphasize death's inevitability, they can be incredibly powerful. But then you've got the second appeal, wish fulfillment. People want to be like Phil in Groundhog Day, mastering the piano and ice sculpting. There is something deeply appealing about having infinite time to learn all the skills, read all the books, and never worry about that pesky inevitable end. Immortality can really add to a feeling of escapist fantasy. But on top of those two, there's the third appeal, and I would argue it's the most interesting of the lot. Immortality allows you as a writer to explore humanity from a totally unique perspective. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll notice that those bottom two layers pertaining to staying alive, an immortal never needs to worry about that stuff. They don't need to eat or drink or have safety. It really doesn't matter if they get shot, they'll be fine. These all might sound quite obvious, but what they mean is what would be a higher need for us puny mortals of, a love, esteem, fulfilling one's potential, those become their fundamentals. An immortal might crave companionship as much as someone dying of thirst craves a glass of water. This can create some fascinating characters which let us see humanity in a new light, and when you let them live for a few hundred years or more, this can magnify these aspects even further. When Wolverine loses all purpose in life, when the Doctor feels utterly alone, or Dr. Manhattan becomes apathetic about humanity, they're exploring the extremes of feelings we all might have in small doses, only these immortals deal with these issues with a far greater dramatic intensity. Many stories have explored this third appeal in some very interesting, sophisticated ways, and by the time this video's done, you'll have what you need to make your story one of them. What's so enamoring about immortality is how it is both the greatest blessing one could have and the most terrible curse one could think of, which leads us to part one. The cost of eternity.
I'm old enough to know that a longer life isn't always a better one. In the end, you just get tired. Tired of the struggle. Tired of losing everyone that matters to you. Tired of watching everything turn to dust. If you live long enough, Lazarus, the only certainty left is that you'll end up alone. That's a price worth paying. Is it?
Of the people who would choose to have immortality, I doubt they put much thought into how unique a form of torture it is. Obviously, no one knows what immortality would be like, but one common through line that pretty much everyone agrees on: if you're the only immortal around, being crushed by loneliness and grief is inevitable. You might eventually stop caring about people entirely, not necessarily because of nihilism, but because you've already had 19 lovers or best friends, and you can't stand the idea of watching yet another die, having your heart broken for the 20th time.
Immortality isn't living forever, that's not what it feels like. Immortality is everybody else dying.
If things get bad enough, you might end up like Omni-Man, viewing the lives of strangers as worthless and viewing loved ones not as people, but something lesser.
I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me.
There are so many fun, heartbreaking ways to do an immortal's relationships. Take Torchwood. Jack has a nephew.
Uncle Jack!
Steven! Hey, soldier, how you doing?
Only Jack doesn't have a nephew, that's his grandson. They lied about who he really is because it's far too difficult a truth to burden the kid with. And Jack's immortality is ruining his relationship with his daughter.
I just can't stand it, Dad. I look older than you do, and it's never going to stop. One day you're going to be standing at my funeral, looking just like you did when you were standing at Mum's. No wonder she was so furious. You make us feel old.
Then take Superman Unchained. Superman sees a vision of his future. A decade. Not long, yet everyone appears so much older, don't they? What about you, though? You don't. Unless you do, because you apply makeup. And Superman does what he can to fake aging just so he can fit in. As hard as he tries, it all comes to an inevitable end. And now it's 80 years from today. Open the door, Superman. What do you see? However you write your immortal, it's unavoidable that they'll be detached from the mortals around them to some degree. They're not just lonely because all their friends keep aging and dying. After a while, they're alone because there is no one out there who has even vaguely similar experiences, life goals, and attitudes. They become increasingly unique in the population with time, drifting away. People might not want to be friends with them because the immortal is odd and, frankly, impossible to relate to. What happens to the mind of an immortal and how they'll change mentally is a fascinating topic that I'll cover later on, but there's a whole other angle to approach the costs from, because ultimately, immortality is magic. Thinking about how this affects their spirit and relationships is all well to do, but it's often a good idea to treat their immortality as its own magic system. And according to our Lord and Saviour Brando Sando, praise be, with magic, limitations are more interesting than the powers themselves. Barbossa is a way more interesting character because of the price he pays for his immortality.
For too long I've been parched of thirst and unable to quench it. Too long I've been starving to death and haven't died. I feel nothing. Not the wind on my face, nor the spray of the sea, nor the warmth of a woman's flesh.
And that's very similar to Balder from God of War. He's invulnerable, and the price he pays is not being able to feel anything. Not warmth or cold, not sex or pain, and it's driven him utterly mad.
Death has no power over you now. You would rather die?
And never feel again? Yes.
Ask yourself this: what hardships affect my character because of their method of immortality? Are you writing a sci-fi? Then perhaps your character needs to pay a hefty subscription fee to stay alive, or the company pulls the plug. Perhaps they might be given a new body for their consciousness, but they don't own that body, they're leasing it in return for working a certain job, so it's essentially a new form of slavery. Mickey 17 is a great example. The character's life is viewed as utterly worthless, because if he dies, they can just print him again.
Well, it's nice knowing you. Have a nice death. See you tomorrow.
No, what are you doing?
Huh?
You can't tear a hole in my fucking carpet.
Well, we'll just shoot him from the side.
Though there's a story that came before with essentially the same concept, Hard Space Shipbreaker. In that game, the player characters signed a dark and awful contract where they become a debt slave working the dangerous job of salvaging old ships. Every time they die, they're resurrected, and the fee of the new body is added to their already cripplingly large debt. It's a great game, by the way, literally an incredible game, and I've yet to meet a person who has played it, but let's look at things from the other side. Are you doing fantasy? Then consider the One Ring. It gives the wearer uncommonly long life, yet it also corrupts, turning anyone who bears it for too long into something monstrous. The ring doesn't give you extra life per se, instead it takes the life you already have and it stretches it out.
I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread.
If it goes on for too long, you'll turn into Gollum, a sad, corrupted thing. The possibilities for costs, especially with fantasy, are only limited by your imagination. Rand in The Wheel of Time. He's a reincarnation of an immortal spirit, and as he attunes with his old self, he goes more and more insane. That's a fun cost. Or take the Hulk. He is cursed like Barbossa, essentially unkillable, but with a Jekyll and Hyde dynamic. Perhaps there's something they need to do continually in order to remain alive. Some terrible price they pay again and again to stave off death. It could be the Emperor in Warhammer 40k, needing 1,000 people sacrificed daily just so he can stay alive. Or vampirism. A lot of depictions involve them needing to feed, else they'll die or degrade. In the film Daybreakers, vampires had proliferated and totally taken over society, only due to a mismanagement of the human livestock, the humans are dying out, so they're running out of blood. This is causing all the vampires to descend into rabid monsters because they can't feed. Within all this, there's a character who's forcibly converted into a vampire, but she refuses to feed, she refuses to debase herself and pay the cost inherent with being a vampire, so she chooses to die, essentially. She descends into a savage creature they eventually kill because she's so unwilling to cross that ethical line. That's some very interesting character work made possible because of the limitations in the magic system. Another banger, the Lazarus Pit. Yeah, it'll restore your health and make you younger, and it can even resurrect, but it exacts a terrible cost. It becomes less and less effective with each use, and centuries of using it has degraded Ra's al Ghul's mind.
He's already dead. He has died 1,000 times. And every time the Lazarus Pit restored him, he came back worse. More hateful. More crazed.
Bootstrap Bill, he's bound to the Flying Dutchman for eternity, and it's giving him magical dementia.
Bootstrap, you know my name.
Every time he finishes a conversation, his memory is reset.
Bootstrap. Oh. You know my name.
It's pretty grim, but I have to say the most upsetting depiction of immortality I've seen comes from Torchwood. So there's a guy called Owen and he gets shot and killed, only he's resurrected, and while he is now ageless and technically immortal, all biological functions of his body have stopped. He is pretty much a walking corpse. If he gets scratched permanently. His hair no longer grows, he can't eat or drink anything because if he does, this happens.
I forgot. My digestive system's shut down. That alcohol I drank is just going to sit in my stomach. It won't go anywhere.
Can you just stick your fingers down your throat?
I'm dead. It's just another one of those things. The gag reflex that I lost in the process.
So he has to use gravity to get the alcohol out.
That is the single most disgusting thing I have ever seen!
You might be wondering why I find this the most disturbing depiction out there, because it's not actually Owen that upsets me, it's an entirely different depiction in the 4th season. So the premise of that season is that everyone on Earth is suddenly immortal. Only there's a catch.
One of the victims has been... I'm sorry. They brought me in as an expert, but I don't know what the hell this is.
The catch is, everyone's bodies still work the same. They still age, they can still be blown up or have their necks snapped. Nothing is changed about the body's ability to heal, yet they'll remain alive forever, all the same.
We think this man was right at the center of the blast, and yet he's still alive. Clearly, the skin is burnt. He's not indestructible, just undying.
The whole series is exploring the ramifications of what would happen if this suddenly happened to everyone on Earth, and my god does it go to some very dark places. Miracle Day really went under the radar, it's some damn fine, disturbing stuff. So much so, it's a key bit of inspiration for my horror novel I'm currently revising, but I think it goes without saying that this is easily the worst form of immortality one could have. Like, give me Barbossa's curse any day of the week, because this one's pure nightmare fuel. So, we've got the costs one has to endure while being immortal, but a whole other way of approaching this here are the costs involved in attaining it in the first place. There are some really fun depictions where we discover the horrific price someone had to pay to overcome that initial hurdle of death. You can die, or accept Davy Jones's offer.
Join my crew and postpone judgment.
And escape death by becoming effectively a slave, as well as having your body transformed into a nautical-themed monstrosity. That's pretty grim. Or take Voldemort and his Horcruxes. He can take a part of his soul and put it into an object, but every time he does it, he has to kill someone.
7. Merlin's beard, Tom. Isn't it bad enough to consider killing one person? To rip the soul into 7 pieces.
And there's an episode of Batman Beyond that is just delightfully fucked up. Ra's al Ghul died, and Talia's been acting all weird, only for her to say this.
I did not want you to find out this way, but I suppose what is done is done.
Detective.
And it turns out that when the Lazarus Pit stopped working for him, Ra's murdered his daughter and stole her body so he could keep going.
In order to save my life, I called upon Talia to undertake the ultimate act of loyalty.
You sacrificed her. Your own daughter. Sure, Raish, why not? Anything to hold off the Grim Reaper another few seconds. I take it back. You don't cheat death. you whimper in fear of it.
The Last Crusade. You can become immortal, but you need to choose the right cup. And it's not a choice you want to get wrong.
He chose poorly.
Here's where the limitations of their immortality become incredibly important, when they add stakes to the story. The threat of your character dying is a staple stake in pretty much every genre if you discount romance. This all presents a tricky question: how the hell do you have stakes in a story when your character can't die? Many writers have grappled with this issue, and far and away the most common approach I've seen is to keep the threat of death on the table, because what they've got is conditional immortality. That could be being cursed to live forever because you stole some medallions until someone breaks that curse, in which case you become just as mortal as anyone else. It could simply be being ageless. The elves in Lord of the Rings are perfectly mortal, they just live for a stupidly long time. It could even be vampires. A vampire's got to have their blackout curtains ready to go and be extra vigilant during the day. Dorian Gray. He's immortal, unless he sees his painting, in which case all of those years catch up to him and it doesn't end terribly well. It could be drinking from the Grail and being immortal, so long as you remain confined to the temple. Should you leave it, your immortality leaves you.
That is the boundary and the price of immortality.
There are so many kinds of conditional immortality out there, those are only a few. But ultimately, here's the rub, and here's a way of totally recontextualizing this entire problem. Writing a character who has immortality is very similar to writing a character who has plot armor. Doctor Who isn't technically immortal, he's just ageless. He's functionally immortal, because the show is named after him, he's not going to die. There's even an episode where he gets shot and conclusively killed, only no one bought that one for a second, because guess what? As everybody predicted, it turns out he didn't die after all. Both with plot armor and immortality, we know they will never die. Deriving stakes from their death is folly. Perhaps it's the people they have relationships with. While we know the Doctor can't die, we do fear for his companions and the characters of the week, all of which can meet nasty ends. Even if you don't like a character like the Master, you can still have powerful stakes because their death means a ton to your immortal.
You can't end like this. You and me, all the things we've done.
In that vein, you've got Logan trying to save Jean.
I love you.
Not very successfully. It could be Bootstrap Bill covering for his son and paying a terrible price to save him from a terrible fate.
Bootstrap Bill, you're a liar and you will spend an eternity on this ship.
But if you feel like conditional immortality is a bit of a cop-out and killing the ones they care about is just a bit too blunt, you can get freaky with it. You can go to some incredibly dark places because all throughout fiction, even through mythology, we've had so many horrid fates for immortals, ones worse than death. In Doctor Who, and Christ, this is turning into a Doctor Who video, isn't it? There is a group of aliens desperate to steal the Doctor's agelessness and immortality, killing many innocents along the way. They fail, and so the Doctor punishes them by giving them what they were after.
He wrapped my father in unbreakable chains forged in the heart of a dwarf star. He tricked my mother into the event horizon of a collapsing galaxy, to be imprisoned there forever. My sister, he trapped her inside a mirror. Every mirror. As for me, I was suspended in time, and the Doctor put me to work standing over the fields of England. We wanted to live forever, so the Doctor made sure that we did.
This is a storytelling stake that you cannot have without immortality, an eternity of suffering, turning something to be a blessing into the worst curse imaginable. Take Mimir in God of War, immortal and cursed to be fused with a tree.
He tortures me, you know. Every day, brother. Odin himself sees to it personally, and believe me, there is no end to his creativity.
That also reminds me of Harold from Fallout. He fused with a tree sapling, and as the centuries ticked by, it grew and grew until it took root in the ground, pinning him in place. By the time we meet him in Fallout 3, he's finally had enough.
I had you brought in here to ask a very simple favor. Would you please kill me?
Dark stuff. If you get creative here, the stakes for your immortal can be even worse than death. Again, in Torchwood Miracle Day, every character is immortal, but eternal torment is a living, broken corpse. The stakes in that story are higher because everyone is immortal. Then you have the Greek myths. Tithonus was granted immortality, but not eternal youth, so he aged like a mortal to rather grim results. Or Prometheus being chained to a rock and having his liver eaten by an eagle every day. And here's a really bleak one. In the short film Control Z, the protagonist has a device where when he dies, he resets back to a certain point. It ends with him setting his reset point as he steps into a road. And he tries as best he can to avoid it, but he can't. So he's trapped in the loop, dying not just until the end of the universe, but eternally. And the key mistake he made, aside from the reset point, you can see it right here. A little more, nearly there. Right there, that's right, he didn't install NordVPN, the sponsor of today's video. NordVPN doesn't just give you immortality, it means you can browse the internet with near total privacy thanks to their end-to-end encryption, so you can make extra sure no one can know things like your bank details or that you watch ASMR. That is nifty, but where it's the most useful to me, aside from the immortality of course, is how you can expand your streaming libraries. I'm in the UK, but let's say Cool Cat Saves the Kids is only available on Canada's Netflix. I can use NordVPN to pretend I'm Canadian for 90 minutes, watch it, and it's happy days. This is the main thing I use Nord for, but it's great for other things too. It's always scanning the dark web, so if your details leak, you can know they have and do something about it before anyone can use them for anything nefarious. And they've got a nifty anti-phishing feature, Threat Protection Pro, which gives you yet another layer of protection. So if you want added security, extra films and shows, and extra immortality, and sorry, what's that? NordVPN doesn't actually make you immortal? It's a great deal anyway. Just click my link in the description or use my code CLOSERLOOK at the checkout for 4 free months when you get a 2-year plan. Do click that link and start enjoying loads of region block stuff today. But back to it, there are still other ways to derive stakes with an immortal. It could be the love triangle of Twilight, perhaps there's a larger collective, some group they're fighting for, and while they can't personally die, that group can still lose or be destroyed. This could be Wolverine fighting to protect the students in X-Men 2, or Omni-Man fighting in the name of the Viltrum Empire. It could be Legolas trying to save Middle-earth, Hellboy protecting the public from monsters, you get the gist. You could even explore the apathy of an immortal, and that can be the main thing at stake in the story. Will they find meaning, or will they descend into the nihilism of thinking nothing matters, so why bother? And speaking of, how would immortality affect the mind? This, to me, is the most interesting part of immortality. There are so many weird, fascinating ways to explore your immortal's psyche. Here is one. Living well beyond what the brain is supposed to, it might mean the mind breaks. Not only will this mean your immortal might accrue all kinds of complex traumas. Having PTSD over one event is bad enough. Imagine having it because of 50 events over 1,000 years. Murphy's Law is a hell of a thing. If you live for long enough, you're getting PTSD somehow, somewhere. Take Immortal from Invincible. Despite being one of the more powerful characters in that show, his degrading sanity is a massive liability. When he comes to after Omni-Man kills him, he doesn't do the sensible thing and regroup with Cecil or other heroes and try and take him down. All he sees is red.
Where is Omni-Man? Where is he?
He charges right at him in a blind, thoughtless rage, and it doesn't end very well for him. The whole ordeal's taken a massive toll on his mind, and from here on, his psyche only crumbles further, because this was his breaking point. He becomes paranoid, quick to anger, and consumed by sadness.
I could have cost us that fight, because I didn't trust Invincible. And then I almost started an interplanetary war with his one-eyed friend. I was already broken, Cecil. Kate's death just finished me off.
If you live for long enough, yeah, that will probably happen to you. The idea of being like Captain Jack, always so cool, calm, and collected, it is a bit outlandish. It's unlikely your character would be like that after a few thousand years. They'd probably be a lot more broken. And take memory. A brain can only hold so much data. Think of Ashilda in Doctor Who. She writes all of her adventures down and has a library just for her journals, and she needs it.
I can't remember most of it. That's the trouble with an infinite life and a normal-sized memory.
Can't have been easy, outliving the people you love.
According to my journals,
Hell.
Or Hoyd in the Cosmere. He uses a magic system to store his memories externally because his brain just can't hold all of that information, and that leaves him vulnerable to manipulation. A popular number thrown around is that the brain has 2.5 petabytes of storage, and I hate to piss on everyone's parade. Okay, who am I kidding? I love to do that. The 2.5 petabytes number is bullshit. Complete grade A bullshit. It came from not even a study, but a glorified blog post. When a 2010 blog post is the primary source, you know that's some quality science you can rely on. It is just a psychology professor saying, I reckon it's vaguely 2.5 petabytes, and there are no sources, no calculations laid out, so yeah, ignore that. The truth is, after doing a lot of research into this for the video, nobody has even the vaguest clue what the memory capacity of the human brain is. We can only guess, so you have a lot of dramatic license here. You could make it 200 years, or 500, or even 1,000. There is no evidence out there to prove you wrong if you go for 1,000. That being said, there are still rules by which the brain works, and as fun a depiction as that Doctor Who character is, it doesn't sound plausible, because the death of a parent or spouse would leave such a powerful impression on the immortal, it's unlikely they'd ever forget it, even accounting for finite memory. When we remember something, we reinforce it. As long as you're remembering a detail every couple years or so, the brain will hold on to that. A more reasonable depiction of someone who's run out of memory capacity of their brain is them remembering the highlights of their life, the key formative moments that made them feel something powerful. So anything traumatic, deaths of loved ones, or even positive moments, the birth of their children, perhaps that one holiday where they had an unforgettably good time. But all that stuff in between would fall through the sieve of time, irrevocably forgotten. Your character losing old memories has a lot of storytelling potential. Maybe they're retracing the footsteps of something that happened deep in their past, but they've forgotten all about it, so it's like a mystery for them to solve. Or maybe it's like Wolverine. Stryker wants to kill him, but he can't. He's immortal, so he settles for the next best thing.
His brain may heal, but his memories won't grow back.
Which makes perfect sense. An immortal might have every cell heal back, but neurons aren't cells. Brain damage could very reasonably cause your immortal to totally forget who they are, and due to this severe brain trauma, he's lost all memory of his life.
What's my name? What's my name? Your name is Logan.
Even if they don't get shot in the head, the effect of them losing their memories would still happen given time. There might just be a great deal of personality drift because of that. Formative moments that made them the person they were might gradually be forgotten, so they would stop being formative, and other more recent events might replace them as their new formative memories. An immortal might change quite dramatically as a person given time, so it somewhat breaks believability when your immortal has been around for an incredibly long time, and they haven't changed one bit. Take Rory in Doctor Who. Rory's girlfriend is trapped in a sci-fi prison, so Rory, now ageless, decides to guard her from 102 AD all the way up to the modern day.
2,000 years, Rory, you won't even sleep. You'd be conscious every second. It would drive you mad.
The Doctor makes an excellent point. That would drive someone mad. So why doesn't it? The guy was about 30 when this started. He then lives for 2,000 years, and when we meet him again after all that time, he's still the same guy.
No, too fast, I'm not getting it.
After 2 millennia, he'd practically be a different person. He'd have met so many people, and that would have changed him. He would have gotten so much wiser, perhaps even a bit loopy, as the Doctor himself suggests. There are lots of ways in which he might have changed, and we got none of them. He still talks as he always did, despite now being 2,000 years old, a shy guy from the 2010s.
Must be like a recording or something.
That's just not cricket. Would he have grown to be way more confident? And that feeds into the next bit. Wouldn't living that long give you so much time to discover who you are? Because one of the knock-on effects of immortality would be giving off an aura of true authenticity, one most mortals never manage. And as a consequence, all of the sharp edges of who they truly are on display. They'll happily engage in the kinds of behaviours that their society might look down on. The idea of a gay immortal character who hides their sexuality is unthinkable. It just wouldn't happen. The same for all of the other shadow traits. Your immortal might be a pariah in their society because they're utterly unafraid of being authentic. A great example of it done right is Doctor Who. He is always himself in full bombastic form. He is whimsical, dark, arrogant, compassionate. He embodies the full spectrum of how a person might be. He doesn't care what others think of him, so he fully embraces his eccentricity.
Why, what is it?
Yeah, just looks like a thing, doesn't it? People don't question things, they just think, it's a thing.
No, bunk beds are cool. A bed with a ladder. You can't beat that.
Oh, look down there, you got a little shop. I like a little shop.
Never mind that.
He has no peers to judge him. This authenticity means he has all sorts of sharp edges that are magnetic to some and repugnant to others. Some love him for it.
He's like fire and ice and rage. And he's wonderful.
And others fear him for it.
No, Colonel Manson, I want you to tell your men to run away.
What?
Those words, run away. I want you to be famous for those exact words. I want people to call you Colonel Runaway.
The entire dialect race wiped out in 1 second. You lie!
I watched it happen.
I made it happen!
He never raised his voice. That was the worst thing. The fury of the Time Lord. Why this doctor, who had fought with gods and demons, why he'd run away from us and hidden. He was being kind.
There is a darkness to him that comes out whenever it's triggered because he's unabashedly his true self, and that's bang on the money for how someone nearly 1,000 years old would behave. Not necessarily whimsy, but whoever your immortal truly is deep down, they will fully realise that given time, and your immortal's got nothing but time. Another example is Sabretooth in X-Men Origins. We see in the opening that he's just a normal kid, then he's fighting in the Civil War with gusto and genuine concern for his brother. Then in the next war, he's scratching people's faces off. In the next war, he's leaping around like a beast, then smiling as he shoots fleeing soldiers in the back. And in the next war, he's about to do something very naughty to a woman when his ally stops him, so he just kills his fellow soldier, then goes on a killing spree, killing his own platoon. Sabretooth became more authentic with each passing war, fully realising his true awful self. Again, there's a reason why most people aren't authentic. It runs the risk of making you ostracised, though Sabretooth is taking things to a frankly dramatic extreme. For the Doctor, though, he's unflinchingly honest about his self-confidence.
So what you're saying is the entire world revolves around you?
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, Lumi, you're a clever man. I'd call you a genius, except I'm in the room.
Having that degree of confidence in yourself is incredibly taboo. People will perceive you as cocky and arrogant if you do it. It is usually a shadow trait. A lot of people beat themselves down without really noticing, often to avoid the label of arrogant. But the Doctor doesn't really give a shit. He probably did give one when he was a young man, but after 900 more years of life, nope, he's not holding back. If he has an opinion, no matter how people will react, he's going to say it.
And your name?
Stahl the Undefeated!
Oh, that's not a very good nickname. What if you do get defeated? Stahl, they're not quite so undefeated anymore, but never mind.
Or take Juan in Highlander. He wears red clothing that the local Scots find ridiculous.
You look like a woman, you stupid haggis.
But he doesn't care. He likes the look. He's going to wear it, if only for himself. Exceptions can be found, though, in societies made up of immortal or long-lived characters. Take the elves in Lord of the Rings. While an elf will live for a bloody long time, so will their friends and family. So in such a society, yeah, it's more reasonable for a character to hide who they truly are. Or Omni-Man. He's from an expansionist, brutal culture that views compassion as a weakness. So despite being extremely old, due to the influence of others in his society, he still has a massive personal shadow. To inspire you, if someone is like Omni-Man, brutal and callous, then what's probably in his shadow would be the capacity to embrace empathy, to show compassion, to be emotionally vulnerable with others. And on the flip side, if you have someone filled with compassion, being endlessly nice to everyone they meet, what might be in their shadow is a capacity for being brutal or angry. Both can be shadow traits. Alright, so memory, authenticity, but what's also really juicy here are immortal character arcs. How they'll learn lessons will be radically different from the way a mortal would. People are inherently stubborn, and that's something I refuse to change my mind on. Immortality boosts this to the nth degree. There are lots of reasons why an immortal character would have a disposition to being way more closed-minded than a mortal, so it requires a lot more to get them to learn a lesson. The longer we've had a habit, the more ingrained it becomes in our brains. If you've had a habit or firm belief for 2 years, it's going to be a lot easier to change that versus somebody who's had that same thing but for 50 years. So what happens when 50 years becomes 500? Well, the trend would hold. They would become increasingly stubborn. It might be the case that your immortal is so utterly locked into their habits and worldviews, it's impossible to convince them to change. How can you give your immortal something they fear? It's a tricky question, but if you get a bit creative here, there are all kinds of arcs you can give them. Take Kratos. There's a reason he looks the way he does. He is caked in the ashes of his dead wife and daughter, whom he murdered, haunted forever by his biggest mistake. In earlier games, Kratos is a man of pure, uncontainable rage. But in the more recent ones, he's changed. When a man appears at his house and threatens him, while young Kratos would have instantly attacked, this Kratos uses all of his self-control to try and find a peaceful outcome.
You do not want this fight.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I do.
He's still a very angry man, but he's clearly learned to control it because he fell in love with another woman and had a son, and this new family caused him to change. He knows he lost his loved ones before because he was a wrathful, angry killer, so for the sake of his new son, he has to change. He's doing all he can to be a better man.
I know you're not the god you once were, and now is your chance to prove it.
Return my son, or you may meet the god I once was.
That's a great way to approach this. Come up with something they fear, and to stop that fear from occurring, that's why they change. But a different way to do it. Take Omni-Man. He seemingly loved many people like Debbie, but it was always a fleeting thing that paled compared to his loyalty to Viltrum. Only when he has a son, a moment comes where he has to choose between his son's life or his loyalty to the Empire. A crossroads, and that crossroads of deciding between the two things he cares about the most in the world is what causes an incredible shift in who he is. Or Thor. He's an immortal god, and in that first film, he has a lot of issues going on.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy, and you are an old man and a fool!
Something extremely dramatic needs to happen in order for a stubborn Thor to learn his lesson, and that's having all of his powers stripped, going from mighty god to puny, powerless mortal. It holds in every example I found. If you want an immortal to believably change who they are, that lesson needs to be learned in a grand, dramatic way. But then you have a specific arc that's been done again and again with immortal characters, going from apathy to passion, going from detached to connected. So how might they escape the black hole of nihilism? The pain of living such a pointless hollow life might be so intolerable, seeing as they can't escape into death, they simply have to choose between a life of meaning or one where they wallow in depressed pointlessness for all eternity. And let's be honest, that's a fairly easy choice to make, and that's why immortal characters really shouldn't be nihilistic for too long, because it just doesn't make much psychological sense. You can look at Bruce Banner, he had such an arc, though it did happen off screen.
I got low. I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. I focused on helping other people. I was good.
The truth is, nihilism is self-defeating. It's surely something your immortal would grapple with eventually, but it's such a miserable way to live that your immortal, given enough time, would eventually find their escape from it, finding meaning somehow in some way. You've got Omni-Man too. He's about to end it all when he sees some aliens in peril, and that gives him the idea to help them and find meaning at his lowest point. Then Wolverine.
Eternity can be a curse.
In one film, he's weary with life, so someone makes him an offer.
I can end your eternity. Make you immortal.
He wants to take Logan's immortality for himself. In theory, the bones of a great character arc were there, but it's not an amazingly written film, because they didn't properly set up Logan being weary with life at the start of the film, they didn't properly explore him rediscovering how to find meaning in the middle, and in the end were given the conclusion to his supposed arc, where it reaches the most stupid conclusion.
Your mistake was to believe that a life without end can have no meaning. It is the only life that can.
What the hell is even that?
What bullshit. So the moral of the story is everyone who's not immortal should just give up, because only immortals can live meaningful lives? What were the writers smoking? In theory, this is a great arc for an immortal to have, it's just this particular film really dropped the ball with it. But it's not unreasonable for your immortal to become aloof. Doctor Who.
Not the whole town. Just save someone.
You have the Doctor believing he can never interfere with important events, no matter how tragic, detached from the human cost, only to be convinced otherwise by Donna's compassion.
Come with me.
Or take Vandal Savage. In an episode of the Justice League, Superman is sent into the far future where everyone on Earth is dead, apart from Vandal Savage and Immortal. He's always been a stubborn, power-obsessed villain to the Justice League. He's never showed any signs of changing his ways, but in this far future, he has.
Your funeral was lovely. I'm glad you enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I did. But I've had 30,000 years to reconsider.
It took you that long to figure out that you're a power-mad despot?
It took me that long to figure out that my lust for power and control was meaningless.
Turns out he accidentally killed everyone on Earth in his bid to control them, and that horrific mistake, combined with tens of thousands of years of solitude, was finally enough to make him realize he's the villain.
I'd intended to leave the Earth and search the universe for other life, but I never did.
Too difficult?
Not at all. I decided I deserved to be punished.
And so he ends up doing something that the original him would have never done. He helps Superman go back in time to stop his past self, essentially killing his current self because of the change he's undergone. It is a powerful episode. Be sure to give them a complex psyche, consider the costs they pay for their immortality, and keep the stakes alive. Each is its own plate for you to spin, but do all three and you're setting yourself up to create a fascinating immortal. Anyway, thanks for watching, keep writing, and I'll see you guys next time on The Closer Look.